Hey there, everybody. My name is Alex Tack, and today we're going to talk about the weird and wonderful world of SaaS automation. So in a nutshell, that's really a way of getting different web applications to talk to one another. So that might come in a couple different flavors. Let's think about Zapier is one, IFT is another, and then today we're going to be talking about Office 365 solution, Power Automate. The nice thing about Power Automate is it allows to get your Office 365 applications talking to one another, as well as other applications outside of the Microsoft realm, and being able to accomplish things you would otherwise not normally be able to accomplish, and be able to complete processes that would normally take a person hours to be able to complete based on how complicated they might be, and streamlining that. And a perfect example for today is we're actually going to be looking at how can we get SharePoint, OneNote, OneDrive, what else do we got in here? Forms will be a little bit in here. All that stuff is happening in this one Power Automate. So I hope you enjoy the demo, and if you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate or feel free to reach out. Thank you very much for your time. Check it out. Perfect. Okay, so before we dive right into this demo, let's take a step back, and I want to put a little background history together for you. So I'm an executive on a couple community development boards, and in both instances, we do have Office 365 tenants that we use to kind of administrate the board and streamline a lot of the stuff that we do. So with my background in IT, I really have spent the last several years trying to build tools that really simplify that process and allow us to do things that we otherwise would not normally be able to do. So this is the flow that I'm going to take you through. But before we jump into the flow, I think it's important you know all the things that we do use. So we do use a SharePoint site to kind of administrate the board. On that SharePoint site, there's a submit a report. If the idea being is a board member would submit a report every month, and that would have on it their board report. So basically, they would be picking what position they're in. They're going to be telling us their name, the title of the report they're doing, what the actual report is. This will actually take one full Word page worth of information. This is an FYI. And what month the meeting you're going into is going to be, as well as several other bits of information we want to capture. As a board, we also use OneNote to capture our minutes. So month after month, we'll actually keep track of our minutes in here. And at the end of any given month leading up to the next meeting, normally it's my responsibility to open those minutes on OneNote on my computer. I have to export that as a PDF manually and then send it to our chair so it can be sent out to the rest of the board. So already there's some room that we're going to be trimming off inside the process based on what I built, which is pretty awesome. And then SharePoint lists to keep track of everything. So every time somebody submits within that form, it's going to go and put a line inside our database so that we can always reference that later, not just in the OneNote, but maybe down the road we want to reference, give me all the communications reports for a year, give me all the chairperson's reports for a year, give me all the financials for a year. So there is some power and lots of benefit to storing some of this information this way. So let's have a look at this flow. Okay, so our minutes maker is firing off. What normally would happen is it is set to go off at midnight at the first of every month. So the idea being this is a flow that's going to run end to end from basically the beginning of the month to almost the end. Keep in mind that you have about 28 days for your particular run to have its cycle complete. And if I use the word flow and Power Automate interchangeably, that's just because when I really started playing around with these tools, it was called Microsoft Flow. And now just with the advent of the Power Automate suite, essentially, they've kind of done some rebranding. So that's what I'm talking about if you're ever wondering. So this is going to go off. It's going to build a couple variables, which are basically boxes for us to store strings or an array into, depending on what particular task I need, because in this particular flow, we do need to pass some information back and forth and store some things that we're going to use later. So then I have a gets and a sets. Excuse me. It's going to go get that notebook minute. So it's going to go get these minutes right here and some other information. It's going to go to the internet and get the current month and year. I have appended just a 01 at the end so I can tell the difference between all the other reports that happened on December 2020, just for testing purposes. And then it's going to create a section within this notebook called, actually, I think that probably should be done already. So we'll just do a quick refresh so you can see, but it'll go and it'll call it what it found when it created that month and then the year. And then it's waiting for an approval, and it's grabbing that section key. So I had mentioned the section before, so it's creating the section for that OneNote. We want to store that key and make sure we can access it later when we need to. So it's waiting for an approval. I have this built. So the idea being is you would wait until a couple hours leading up to your meeting before approving the creation of the agenda package, because this will be us sending out the information to the board based on all the reports that have been submitted so far in a PDF format, no less, so that any board member can basically follow along point to point and reference the reports when they need to reference them. So we're going to approve the creation of that. And the next leg of our flows journey is going to go. So it's going to get the minutes. It's going to do a couple updates because I'm storing some variables in a different database just so I can reference them later for a different reason if we need to outside of this particular Power Automate. And it's going to get the information from the minutes. So it's going to go out to a SharePoint list. So it's actually going to go to this guy here. It's going to look for the month, and it's going to get any report that has the month that it's looking for currently to create that. And then it's going to create a meeting package for everybody that's participating in the meeting. So it's going to go out, it's going to create the actual OneNote pages themselves. I have some data sanitizing going on because they're submitting in forms. The way that forms treats the enter key or how it might treat a tab is different than how HTML, which is how the web basically is built, and in OneNote is rendering information. So there's some sanitizing you need to do. So 2 return keystrokes will show up as a /n, or a tab might show up as a /t. So I'm running the information that's coming out of forms through here and just sanitizing it and stripping out any variables we don't want. This is common practice you're going to come across if you start looking at getting different web applications to talk to one another, because each one is going to have little bits of information and maybe sending over that's irrelevant or it doesn't matter to what you're doing. So it's going to create the pages like I mentioned. It's going to append the information it just put into that page and store it up inside a variable so we can reference it later. And I put a small delay in here just because I have found that if it moves a little too quick sometimes, there can be a little bit of problems. So having a small delay sometimes can help with that. And then it's going to update that information into SharePoint again. It's going to go create an HTML file out of all the meeting minutes that it found. It's going to convert that to a PDF and then create a PDF. And then it's going to email that PDF out to the board. So if I check my Outlook here, we're going to see this guy right here. So that's that communications report that would have been sent out so that everybody's ready to go for that particular meeting. So jumping back to my Power Automate, it's stuck at another wait. So I have this one waiting here. The idea is now your board meeting has already taken place. Weeks have gone by. You've gone through and you've made any adjustments that you might have made to any particular report and make sure everything's good to go to present to the board in the upcoming month. So in this case, I'm actually going to put in an agenda from a different month just so you can see how this all works. Let's take this out. And we will approve the second flow. And in our case, I have that approval going to a shared mailbox so that anybody that has access to that shared mailbox could fire this off and complete it. So that's done. These are the files that it's saving, just so in case you're curious. So now it's going to go get minutes from the current section. So it's going to update some links on SharePoint. It's going to go to OneNote. It's going to take the information from OneNote. So again, OneNote renders things in HTML. So I'm turning that HTML to text, and then I'm updating that text to SharePoint. That way I have the most up-to-date information that was left in the minutes back up onto our SharePoint site so that if we ever reference it later, it's going to be accurate. And then now it's going to build the actual minutes for the upcoming board meeting. It's going to go get that information it needs just to make sure all the links are good. And then it's going to go get every page based on the links that it finds. And it's going to get the information directly from the page itself. So it's going to go look, get all this information here. And then it's going to put all the information into a PDF, an HTML file, then convert it to a PDF, and then create that PDF. Just the exact same steps that we saw earlier. And then it's going to email that finished product back out to the board. So we can go here. Let's just click on it. And voila, as you can see, there's the agenda. There's all the updated information that we put in there. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the demo. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. That's, like I said, the Power Automate is pretty awesome. There's just so much you can do with it. And from here, really, your options are limitless. There's so much more I could do. I could have that final copy saved to a SharePoint document library where we're storing all our permanent records. I could have it put into an Excel document. I could put it onto a Trello board. I could, you know, if I got this passed off to another tool like Zapier, I could put it out on Facebook if I wanted to. There's just so much you can do, and all this stuff happens at a click of a button. So a process that may have taken an individual that's, you know, writing down the meeting minute notes and getting all the reports put together and all of that stuff, it might take them hours and hours and hours to do, and we've done all that in essentially approving a couple flows and hoping that people use forms to submit the information that they're doing for the actual meetings themselves. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this demo, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. Have yourself a great night. Cheers.